Hey guys, Tactical. Today I'm going to talk about the concept of a bug out bag. And I'm going to start with what it is not, very briefly cover that. Talk about what it should be. I'm going to talk about kind of how I have not just a bag, but an entire system that I use. And then how I choose what goes into my bags, both from a perspective of like I'm gonna put a flashlight in there, and then from the aspect of I'm gonna put this flashlight in there. I'm also gonna talk about how I kind of run scenarios in my head to figure all that out. So starting with what it's not, and I'm not gonna go very deep into this. I might do a separate video on it, but a bug out bag is not something that you have to go off into the wilderness and survive indefinitely until zombies come. It's just not. That's not the intended purpose. And if you think you're going to do that, you're wrong. So I'm not going to beat that one up today. I'd rather talk about what it is supposed to be. And I hear people call it, and getting big arguments over, well, it's a bug out bag. No, it's a get home bag. Well, it's a 72-hour bag. I don't care what you call it. Like, if I need a vehicle to go to work and I go into a car dealership, I don't care whether they call it a car, a truck, a vehicle, a mode of transportation. I mean, I don't care if you call it a wheeled human transport device. I just need a vehicle to get to work in. Like, I just need a way to get to work. So I don't really care what you call it. Get off the name thing. But when I say that, and now I'm going to go into, I like to refer to bug out bags as an adult diaper bag. Because if you think about it, what is a diaper bag? You have all of your stuff at your house. So if you have an infant, you have all of the stuff at your house to take care of that infant. And when you leave the house where you have all of your stuff, you take a diaper bag with you, which is everything you think you're going to need for the next day or two to take care of that infant. So why wouldn't you do the same thing for yourself? And I kind of see a lot of people, like, they start with like throwing a Bic lighter in there and this and that and the other and space blankets and all kinds of other stuff. What's the first thing most people are going to need? A cell phone charger. A spare change of clothes. And I'll kind of get into scenarios towards the end is how I figure out what I'm going to put in there. But the point of the matter is you have all of your stuff at the house. When you leave the house, it's a good idea to take some stuff with you, so that if you wind up getting stuck at work because there's a tornado or an ice storm or something, whatever the case might be, if you've got to fly home to go deal with a family member that's in the hospital, you kind of have a pre-put together kit. That way you don't forget stuff when you're trying to run out the door or whatever the case might be. So, for me, like I said, I have a system, and it starts with what you have on your person. And absolutely, I would love to be able to stuff all of the stuff in my bug out bag into my cargo pocket, so I don't have to carry the bag. But I don't think that's very practical. So we have a bag, but it starts with what you have on your person. I have a knife and a flashlight and a cigarette lighter on me all the time, every day. So my bug out bag is for what I can't fit in my pants, or I've got a knife hanging around my neck. I also have my vehicle, so I have a toolkit in my vehicle that's for my vehicle. I've got spare blankets in my vehicle. I've got the Mylar blankets in my vehicle. I've got a first aid kit in my vehicle that's bigger than what I carry in my bug out bag. So I also have a clothing bag, which is just clothes and hygiene supplies, and it's a week's worth. So I've got all of these different things, and I can kind of plug and play stuff as I need it. I had to go home recently for a death in the family, and so what I basically did was I grabbed my clothing bag, and out of my main bug out bag I have most of the stuff like my spare batteries, my spare flashlight, spare cigarette lighter, all that type of stuff is in one little bag. So I grabbed that, stuffed both of those into a sea bag, threw a couple of extra things in there, and left. Like, I can't forget to pack socks because the socks are already packed in the clothing bag. I can't forget to pack a spare cell phone charger because I already have that in the clothing bag. You know, I'm not going to forget my toothpaste because that's in the clothing bag. So I'm not going to forget batteries for my flashlight because that's in the other bag. So just in grabbing those two bags, I have pretty much everything that I need to go home and exist for a week. So that's kind of how I plug and play stuff. Now, and I'll do a separate video and kind of show y'all some of this stuff, like have some of my bags laid out so I can kind of show you how I put it together and mix and match depending on the scenario. But then going into kind of how I choose what goes into my bags. Every person is different. Every person has different needs. Like I'm single, I don't have kids. I don't need to worry about having spare batteries for the Game Boy for the kid, or a bunch of extra food in my bag or whatever. Like I don't have to worry about that. So usually I'll run different scenarios in my head, especially if I hear about, you know, one particular example is the ice storm that hit Atlanta back in like, I don't know, what was it, 2012? That was when I actually threw a bunch of extra Mylar blankets in my truck because I was like, oh, if I was in that scenario, like, and I'm stranded on the interstate with a bunch of other people, like, I'm gonna kind of look like a dick if I'm pulling a fleece blanket out of my bug out bag and I've got like one extra in my vehicle that I can give to somebody else and then everybody else is just screwed. So I throw a bunch of Mylar blankets in there so at least I can hand stuff out to somebody, maybe help somebody out. You know, so I'll look at scenarios like that, and then I also kind of look at, like, right now, if I have to go home for a family emergency, I have to fly. So that's why I have my kits set up the way that I do right now, is because I've run that scenario over in my head. Like, what if I get that call right now? I have to go get on a plane. What is that going to look like? So I kind of tossed that over in my head and like forgetting stuff and clothes. What do I actually need? Well, my clothing bag, you know, I'm going from somewhere where it's really warm to somewhere, if it's in the wintertime, it's going to be fairly cold, at least cool. But going from warm to cool is like going from warm to cold. So I threw a watch cap and a fleece, long sleeve fleece shirt thing in there, a bunch of other stuff like that, just because I know for my in particular case, that's a scenario I've played out in my head. So I kind of start with that, and then when it comes to actually kind of like picking and choosing, like, okay, I want to have a flashlight in my bag, a spare flashlight, because I have had flashlights break on me or stop working or a battery explodes inside of it. Plus, if I have a spare flashlight in there, I also have spare batteries in there, just in and of that. So I kind of look at that, and then when it comes to picking and choosing, like, I have this guy that I carry on me all the time, and this one takes a CR123 battery. But if I'm somewhere else, and I do have spare CR123s in my bag, but if I'm somewhere else long enough, because I got stuck coming home the last time, by the way, like halfway in between. I left my parents' house, got to Jacksonville, got stuck in Jacksonville for an extra week. So if I get stuck and I burn through all the batteries, you know, CR123s can be hard to find, so I actually have another flashlight just like this one, but it takes a AA or a CR123. So it takes both batteries, or it takes the battery that I primarily use plus one of the most common batteries that you can find. You know, my knife, I have a pretty decent knife in my pocket. I have my NT neck knife as well. But just in case something happens to one of these, I also have a spare knife in my bag. But I chose to kind of get a little bit cheaper knife to put in my bags than what I carried on my person. It's something that, like, if I come across something that I really don't feel like using one of these knives for, because I'm gonna like mess the blade up, I can just go grab one out of my bag. No big deal. I paid like $20 for that knife. I actually just did a review on it the other day. The Gerber Evo Tonto Serrated. But it's an inexpensive knife, which means not only do I not feel bad if I break it, but I can buy a bunch of them. So I have one, you know, here and there, and in this bag and in that bag, and got one in the truck, so forth and so on. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I'll start to think about when I start going through to actually pick and choose what I want to put in my bags, from both the aspect of what do I want in there and which version of that do I want. So I'll probably do a couple of follow-up videos for some of the stuff I talked about, like what it's not and why you're not going to walk out in the wilderness for indefinitely. And then I'll definitely be doing a couple of other follow-up videos to kind of show how I have my stuff set up currently. One thing I definitely won't do though is I'm not going to go through every single thing that I have in my bags, because what I need is going to be different than what you need. And so that's why I always try to encourage people to think about stuff. It's one of my big things. And I tell the guys that work for me all the time, like, I will not always be here. You need to learn to think for yourself. So start running some of these scenarios over in your head and, you know, think about where you live, where you work, what it's going to be like if you have to get home, so forth and so on. But until next time, guys, bye.